Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, reading from chapter 1. Observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, chapter 1, text 1. Dhritarashtra Vacha Dhamashata Kurukshetre Samaveta Yutsavaha Mamaka Pandavaschaiva Kimakur Vata Sanjaya.
Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjay, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do?
Thank you, Pinky Mataji. Is there any way of increasing your volume or speaking nearer to your device? Yeah. Text 2. Sanjay Vacha Jisvatu Pandavi Vinaykam Vyadam Duryodhanastada Acharyamapa Shangamya Racha Vachanamapravit.
Sanjay said, O king, after looking over the army arranged in military formation by the sons of Pandu, King Duryodhan went to his teacher and spoke the following words.
Text 3. Ashaita Panduputranam Acharya Mahitim Jamum Vyudam Drupada Putrena Tavasishena Dimata.
O my teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada.
Text 4. Atrashura Maheshasha Bhimarjuna Samayudi Yudhano Viratascha Drupadascha Maharataha.
Here in this army are many heroic bowmen equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna. Great fighters like Yuyudhana, Virata, and Drupada.
Text 5. Trishaketu Chekitana Kashiraja Virayavan Purujit Kunti Bhujascha Shaibhyascha Narapungavaha.
There are also great heroic, powerful fighters like Drishtaketu, Chekitana, Kashiraja, Purujit, Kuntiboja, and Shaibya.
Text 6. Yudamanyuscha Vikranta Utamojascha Viryavan Sabhadra Chapadeyascha Sava Eva Mahatrataha.
There are the mighty Yudamanyu, the very powerful Uttamoja, the son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi. All these warriors are great chariot fighters.
Text 7. Ashmakam tu Visheshta ye Tan Niboda Tvito Tama Nayaka Mama Shainyasya Samyagatam Tam Pravimete.
But for your information, O best of the Brahmanas, let me tell you about the captains who are especially qualified to lead my military force.
Text 8. Pavamishvascha Karnascha Kripascha Samitim Jaya Ashvatama Vikarnascha Soma Datatis Tataivacha.
There are personalities like you, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashwatthama, Vikarna, and the son of Somdatta called Bhurishrava, who are always victorious in battle.
Text 9. Anyecha Bhavashura Madate Jakta Jivataha Nana Shastra Praharana Sarve Yuddha Visharadaha.
There are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake. All of them are well equipped with different kinds of weapons, and all are experienced in military science.
Text 10. Aparyapitam Tadashmakam Balam Bhishma Pirakshitam Paryaptam Tva Idametasham Bala Bhima Pirakshitam.
Our strength is immeasurable, and we are perfectly protected by Grandfather Bhisham, whereas the strength of the Pandavas, carefully protected by Bhima, is limited.
Text 11. Ayaneshu cha sarveshu yata bhagamavashita Bhishma meva pirakshantu bhavanta savaivahi.
All of you must now give full support to Grandfather Bhishma as you stand at your respective strategic points of entrance into the phalanx of the army.
Text 12. Tasya Sanjayan Hasham Guru Vida Pitamaha Simanadam Vinadyoche Shankam Dharmo Pratapavan.
Then Bhishma, the great valiant grandsire of the Kuru dynasty, the grandfather of the fighters, blew his conch shell very loudly, making a sound like the roar of a lion, giving Duryodhana joy.
Text 13. Tataha Shankascha Abhiryascha Panavanaka Gomaka Sahashevapya Ahanyanta Sashabdashtamulo Bhavat.
After that, the conch shells, drums, bugles, trumpets, and horns were all suddenly sounded, and the combined sound was tumultuous.
Text 14. Tata Svayate Haye Yukte Mahati Syadane Stito Madhava Pandavashiva Divyo Shanka Pradat Matahu.
On the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjun, stationed on a great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental conch shells.
Text 15. Panchayanyam Rishikesho Devatatam Dananjaya Ponnam Dadomo Mahashankam Bhima Karma Vrikodara.
Lord Krishna blew his conch shell, called Panchajanya. Arjuna blew his, the Devdatta, and Bhima, the voracious eater and performer of Herculean tasks, blew his terrific conch shell called Pondra.
Text 16 to 18. Ananta Vijayam Raja Kunti Putro Yudhishthiraha Nakula Sahadevascha Shugosha Mani Pushpako Kasyascha Parameshvash Kasyascha Parameshvasha Shikandi Cha Maharata Trishtajumno Vratascha Satyaki Chaparachita Drupa Drupado Drupadayascha Sarvashaha Prithive Pute Sobhadrascha Mahabahu Shankam Dharmaho Pritak Pritak.
King Yudhishthir, the son of Kunti, blew his conch shell, the Ananta Vijaya, and Nakul and Sahadev blew the Sugosha and Manipushpaka. The great archer, the king of Kashi, the great fighter Shikandi, Drishtadyuma, Virata, the unconquerable Satyaki, Drupada, the sons of Drupadi, and others. O king, such as the mighty armed son of Subhadra, all blew their respective conch shells.
Text 19. Sagosha Taratastranam Hidayani Vyatarayat Navascha Prithivim Chaiva Tumolo Pyanu Tatayan.
The blowing of these different conch shells became uproarious, vibrating both in the sky and on the earth. It shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra.
Next 20. Atavyavastitan dristva tata rastagran kapi tvaja pavrite shastra sampate tanodayama pandava vishekesham dadavakyam idam ahamahipate.
At that time, Arjuna, the son of Pandu, seated in the chariot, bearing the flag marked with Hanuman, took up his bow and prepared to shoot his arrows. O king, after looking at the sons of Dhritarashtra, drawn in military array, Arjuna then spoke to Lord Krishna these words.
Text 21 and 22. Arjuna Vacha Senayo Bayo Madhye Ratam Stapaya Mechuta Yavaditan Niriksheham Yodu Kamamavashtitan Kirmaya Saha Yodavyam Asmin Rana Samujame.
Arjuna said, O infallible one, please draw my chariot between the two armies so that I may see those present here who desire to fight, and with whom I must contend in this great trial of arms.
Text 23. Yotsa Yamam Aveksheham Ya Itetra Samagata Tata Rastrasya Durbudi Yudepriya Chiki Sharavaha.
Let me see those who have come here to fight, wishing to please the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra.
Text 24. Sanjaya Vacha Eva Mukta Rishikesho Kuda Keshana Bharata Senayo Vayo Madhye Stapayitva Ratotamam.
Sanjay said, O descendant of Bharata, having thus been addressed by Arjuna, Lord Krishna drew up the fine chariot in the midst of the armies of both parties.
Okay, thank you,
Thank
Pinky.
you. Hare
Uh,
Krishna.
Thank you. Is that right? Up to 24. Yeah, verse 24. Okay, so now I'm just going to recite the verses for today, starting from verse 13. Tata Sankhascha Bharyascha Panavanaka Gomaka Sahasevabhya Anyanta Sashabdastamulo Bhavat. Translation. After that, the conch shells, drums, bugles, trumpets, and horns were all suddenly sounded, and the combined sound was tumultuous. Okay, and because there's no purpose, I'll just go on to verse 14. Tatai Saite Yukte Mahatis Sayandane Stito Madhavaha Pandavascheva Devyo Shanko Pradatmatuhu. Synonyms: Tataha, thereafter; Svete, with white; Haye, horses; Yukte, being yoked; Mahati, in a great; Syandane, chariot; Stito, situated; Madhavaha, Krishna, the husband of the goddess of fortune; Pandavaha, Arjuna, the son of Pandu; Cha, also; Eva, certainly; Divyo, transcendental; Shanko, conch shells; Pradatmatahu, sounded. Translation: on the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, stationed on a great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental conch shells. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. In contrast with the conch shell blown by Bhishma Dev, the conch shell in the hands of Krishna and Arjuna described as transcendental. The sounding of the transcendental conch shells indicated there was no hope of victory for the other side, because Krishna was on the side of the Pandavas. Jayastu Pandu Putranam Jayasham Pakshe Janadana. Victory is always with persons like the sons of Pandu, because Lord Krishna is associated with them. And whenever and wherever the Lord is present, the goddess of fortune is also there. Because the goddess of fortune never lives alone without her husband, therefore victory and fortune will await in Arjuna, as indicated by the transcendental sign produced by the conch of Vishnu, or Lord Krishna. Besides that, the chariot on which both the friends were seated had been donated by Agni, the fire god, to Arjuna, and this indicated that this chariot was capable of conquering all sides wherever it was drawn over the three worlds. Okay, so I'm just going to read the invocation prayers. Please do recite the prayers as well if you'd like to. Om Gyana Timrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmritamina Tasmai Shigurve Nama Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamaya Tadati Swapatantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shiva Shakavitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopishwa Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhana Sata Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Charu Swami Tinamine Snigdha Chaita Sapranita Bhagmivachara Saputam Prabhupada Gata Prani Nami Bhakti Charupadam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvashesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatayane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So once again, chapter 1, text 14, the translation is, on the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, stationed on a great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental conch shells. So, dear devotees, thank you for joining in for today's class. Once again, I wanted to ask for your blessings so I could speak nicely on the wonderful glories, pastimes, and Leela of Sri Krishna, and also to forgive me for any mistakes. I was asked to speak on this particular verse only a few hours ago, so to forgive me if I haven't presented it nicely. So just to understand, observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, as he had titled, we understand that the war is inevitable. So we understand from the Mahabharata itself, the situation between the Pandavas, the righteous army, and the Kauravas, who took away everything that the Pandavas belonged, or everything that the Pandavas had, due to the hierarchy, monarchy, that they were, I suppose, assumed to the realm of the kingdom itself by the rule of King Pandu. But unfortunately, King Pandu had passed away, and during that time, a gambling match took place. Even prior to that, fortunately, Duryodhana from the Kauravas, who was very envious of the Pandavas because of their fame, their strength, the attraction they had for Krishna and Krishna's attraction had for them. So he always had devious plans with his 100 brothers to try and see if he could get rid of the Pandavas. They tried to burn a palace made of wax so they could be all completely destroyed. They took away their kingdom, their armies, everything they possessed through the gambling match by cheating. They dishonored Draupadi, the wife of the Pandavas, destroyed, being harmed during the gambling match itself. So even then, they were after that they were exiled for 14 years, and after exile in the last year they were meant to be in incognito, and if they were found by the Kauravas at any time, they would have to be exiled again for another 14 years. But it so happened they managed to overcome that exile after 14 years. And then they confronted Duryodhana, asking for their kingdom back. But Duryodhana was so envious that he did not want to give any of this kingdom back. And Arjuna, Krishna, Lord Krishna, tried to make peace with the Pandavas and the Kauravas many, many times. It isn't just a situation that battle took place. But if you read the Mahabharata, Krishna actually went to Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra several times. He tried to implore with them, do not have any bloodshed. The war could be avoided if you could just give half the kingdom to Yudhishthira and you can retain half the kingdom, Duryodhana. But Duryodhana was so greedy, so envious, because he was led by his blind father who had so much love and affection for his son, Duryodhana. So Duryodhana was almost like ruling a kingdom, and his father, King Dhritarashtra, was just a blind person, like a puppet. So Duryodhana said to Krishna, I won't even give him a land which is the size of a tip of a pin. So can you imagine that's almost practically saying, you just on your own, just you're just completely forbidden from my kingdom itself. So unfortunately, the war was inevitable. But here we have some good sort of introduction where they start blowing the conch shell. The conch shells have all personalities, have a name for them as well. Like in the verse that we read after this one, Arjuna's conch shell, the name was Devadatta. Sorry, beg your pardon. Well, anyway, Lord Krishna's conch shell was Panchajanya, and Arjuna's conch shell was named, yes, it was Devadatta. So everybody has a different name for their conch shell. Even Yudhishthira Maharaj, the name of his conch shell was Anantavijay. But for Lord Krishna, the conch shell's name was Panchajanya. For Arjuna, it was Devadatta. So there's a beautiful story behind the Panchajanya. So when Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram were young children, when they came back from, I suppose, staying in Vrindavan, then they came back to Mathura, but they had to go to Gurukul, and their teacher, Sanipani Muni, taught them all the art of the Vedic philosophy, taught about Gurukul life, about war principles as well, strategies in war as well at the same time. But they were also raised as Brahmins as well. But during that time, after the end of the Gurukul training, because Sadipan Muni Krishna was their spiritual master, the guru, they had to give a dakshin to the spiritual master. So they asked Sandipani Muni Krishna, Sandipani Muni, what would you like for a dakshin? So Sandipani Muni, he mentioned that his own son had been captured by a demon. The demon's name was, just had it here, Shankashore. He was like a colossal sea demon, and he was residing in the Prabhasa ocean, deep, deep down in the ocean of Prabhasa. He took the form of a conch shell. So Sadipani Muni, he asked Krishna and Balaram, please, I just want you to return my son back. So Lord Krishna was very angry when he heard that his guru's son had been captured by this great demon. So they dived into the ocean of Prabhasa, went down deep, deep, deep. They came across that demon, Shankashore, and they fought with him and they captured him as well. And while they freed the son, they brought the son back to Sanpani Krishna, Sanpani Muni, and also the conch shell, which was taking the form of the demon Shankashore. So then Sanpani Muni, he was very grateful and appreciated Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram, and he gave the name of Panchajanya to that conch shell. So whenever you see that conch shell, it's not an ordinary item, it's actually a special representation of Lord Balaram. All the paraphernalia are expansions of Lord Balaram. They all have personalities. You see in the archer tray, you have the wrist, the conch shell, you have the bell, you have the handkerchief, the different symbols that you use for offering to Krishna. So these are all expressions of Lord Balaram and the conch shell Panchajanya. So normally when you see Lord or a picture of Lord Vishnu, does anybody know what are the other or three or the four items that Lord Krishna carries, Lord Vishnu carries in his forearms? You
Hare
can
Krishna.
unmute yourself. Yeah?
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hi. Yes,
Yeah,
Balika?
is Shankha, Chakra, Gada, and Padma.
Yes, very
Right.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very good. So that's actually, you've got the shank, which is the conch shell, Panchajanya. You have the club, that's called Kamadaki. You have the lotus flower, and you have the Sudarshan chakra. So thank you. So sometimes you see a picture of Lord Vishnu. He has 8 arms. Now, do you know what the other 4 arms he carries? What item does he carry on the other 4 arms? It could be anything, of course. Krishna's unlimited, but in this particular picture, he shows him carrying 4 particular items when he comes to see Daksha after his meditation to Lord Vishnu. Anybody know? So he carries a shield and a sword in one of his pair of hands. Another pair of hands, he carries a bow and arrow. So they're all weapons as well. So we can see Lord Vishnu, he's the protector of the devotees. So he carries all these items to kill off the demons, to prevent them from attacking the demigods themselves. Now you may say, well, if Krishna is all loving, if he is the Supreme Father, he's not supposed to be biased. He sees everyone equally, whether it's a demon or a devotee. So how would you actually answer that? And who was the person who asked this question to Shukadev Goswami? Why is Krishna being biased to the devotees? Like when the Devas are fighting with the demigods, why is Krishna siding with the demigods? Does anybody want to give an answer to that? Come on, Palika. I know you know the answer. So what happened?
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
Palika.
the Hare Krishna, because the devas always worship Krishna. They're not against Krishna. So maybe that's why.
Yes. But also at the same time, the demons are always thinking of Krishna. So whether they're thinking of Krishna in a hateful way or a devotional way, according to Shastra, is supposed to be still thinking
Very
of
good.
Krishna.
Demigods
So
favorably thinking of Krishna, not against.
yeah, that's right. So ultimately, Krishna is the Supreme Father and he sees everyone equally. Just like a learner says, sees with equal vision, a gentle cow, a gentle and learned Brahmana, a cow, elephant, a dog, and a dog eater, because he sees the super soul inside, which is part of Krishna. But externally, they still have a different feature, different nature. Although we don't distinguish the super soul or the soul within the heart, but still there is a level of distinguishing as well. And when the devas are worshipping Krishna, they're worshipping Krishna not always necessarily for themselves, but also for the protection of mankind, because the asuras are always constantly provoking the demigods, causing havoc, causing mischief, destroying the material world, like Hiranyakashipu. If you saw the drama recently, he stood on one hand for 1,000 celestial years, and due to that, the whole planet went out of orbit. Smoke was spillaging through the whole universe, causing the demigods to suffer. So somebody has to come to the aid of the demigods. Somebody who's praying to Krishna to ask for protection. So Krishna, if you're a friend of Krishna, there's nobody in the world who can kill you. But if you're an enemy of Krishna, there's nobody in the world who could protect you from Krishna. So it's better in our favor to be friends with Krishna, because at least Krishna will protect you when you don't have any harm or get into any harm from anybody else. But at the same time, if you become a demon of Krishna, there's nobody in this world who can protect you at all. Um, so one of the thing that's mentioned in here as well, when you read the purport, when Lord Krishna actually blows his conch shell, it shatters the hearts of all the enemies itself. The conch shell itself is a representation. When the sound is blown, it's actually bringing in auspiciousness and removing inauspiciousness. It's actually purifying the atmosphere. That's why when you see the arti taking place, the reason why they blow the conch shell, of course, is to notate arti starting, but more importantly, it's actually to clear the atmosphere around them before they start their worshiping. In the process of Pancharatra, the devotional service of worshiping of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there are so many wonderful activities that you have to do in preparation and worshiping the Lord. Of course, cleanliness is always there, but also the preparations, how you offer everything to Krishna himself, how you purify each of the items with archanam water. This archanam water represents the 9 holy rivers, Godavari, Saraswati, Narmadu, Ganga, Jamuna, etc. It's 9 specific artis. So when you actually, um, I suppose, when you produce archanam water, you're actually invoking all the holy rivers to reside in that pot of the archanam cup, so the water stays purified itself. And the other important thing is that when you're actually blowing the conch itself, like sometimes when you do yagyas, you're also blowing the conch as well. When you're actually purifying an atmosphere, sometimes you may have seen the ceremony as well. When you move into a new home itself, the priest goes around in each room, blows the conch shell to remove all the ghosts, the bad omens, removes all the inauspiciousness, purifies the atmosphere, each of the individual rooms with Ganga water, with cow urine as well, which are considered to be pure in its own state. So these are very important factors about the conch shell. It's not just an ordinary conch shell itself. And the chariot itself, when Arjuna and the Pandavas were in exile, there was one particular year, the last year, or I think it was actually the 13th year, Agastya Muni, he sort of told Arjuna, you realize what's going to happen, don't you? When you go back to claim your kingdom, there's going to be inevitably a war. So you got to prepare yourself. You got to start praying to the demigods and acquiring whatever weapons you can have. You can pray to the demigods for protection itself. So Arjuna went to the heavenly planets. He had that ability to go to the heavenly planets, and there he performed great tapasya. And in doing so, as we read earlier on, the great chariot drawn by the white horses was a gift given by Agnidev. Because Agnidev was very, very pleased with Arjuna, he gave him this beautiful chariot. And also when he worshipped Lord Shiva, he got the mighty bow, the Gandiva. And also he prayed to other demigods, so he could have a quiver that would never run out of arrows. He had other benedictions as well, that he could be protected in certain circumstances as well. But apart from all this protection, there was no need really, because Krishna was by his side. Krishna was there protecting him. And then one of the very last verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Sanjay tells Dhritarashtra, after he's learned this beautiful discourse between Arjuna and Krishna, his hair standing on end, he's feeling so blissful and so devotional, that he says that wherever there's Krishna, the master of mystics, wherever there's Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will certainly be opulence, extraordinary power, morality, and victory. So it's so important: opulence, morality, victory, and what was the fourth one? Morality, opportunity, opulence, victory, and extraordinary power. Extraordinary power. So that's so important to understand, that wherever Krishna is there, he's your dearest friend. So during the actual war between the Pandavas, one other thing that happened was Lord Indra, who was the demigod father of Arjuna, when Queen Kunti prayed for benediction of a son. At the same time, the first son, which was Karna, he was begot from Surya Dev. He had this invincible arm around him. And then what happened, Indra tricked him in such a way, this armor was so powerful that it was invisible. No arrow could penetrate it at all. So he was almost like, he cannot be destroyed at all, Karna. But Indra, he understood what was going to happen. And because of that, he didn't want his own son Arjuna to die in the battlefield. So he tricked Karna in such a way that he came as a Brahmin to Karna and asked for some alms. And of course, Karna knew what, because although he was on the side of Duryodhana, he knew what Indra's intention was. And because he was a Brahmana, he wouldn't refuse and said, whatever you like, let me offer it to you, my dear Brahmana. So Indra explained, please give me your armor. And this armor was actually part of his body itself. So the only way to remove that armor was to actually cut it off with a knife. So you can imagine how painful that was. But it shows you the good quality of also Karna. So although he was on a demoniac side, but he was also a righteous person as well. He didn't like the idea of Draupadi being destroyed, but still, unfortunately, because he was brainwashed with the devious army, he played along with them as well. So the armor was taken off from Karna itself. And of course, Surya Narayan, Surya Dev, the father of Karna, was very unhappy with this, and he said to Indra, look, this is what you've done, it's not fair. So then, unfortunately, as the story unfolds, Arjuna was the cause of Karna's death as well, even though Arjuna realized that Karna was his brother because ultimately Draupadi had told him. So during the Pandavas, there were 7 Akshoni armies. And on the Kaurava side, there were 7 Akshoni armies. 11 Kaurava side, there was 11 Akshoni armies. So just to give you an idea how big an Akshoni army is. So one Akshoni army has 21,870 chariots. Can you imagine that? 21,870 chariots. And the same amount is the number of elephants. And in terms of like horses, there's 65,610 horses. And of infantry, there's 109,350 men fighting on the battlefield on foot. So altogether, if you include these chariot warriors, the elephant warriors, and the infantry and so forth, the horses as well, the warriors and the horses, there's 218,700 warriors for one Akshoni army. So the Pandavas had 7 and the Kauravas had 11. So you can see like Kauravas almost had twice as many. And not only that, they had that special gift because when Arjuna and Duryodhana went to see Krishna just before the start of the battlefield, Krishna was sleeping, and by chance, Duryodhana had accidentally knocked onto something, waking Krishna up. But the first person that Krishna saw was Arjuna. When Krishna found out why Arjuna and Duryodhana were there, because they wanted Krishna and his army to be on their side. But because Krishna understood the mood of Duryodhana, he said, well, because Arjuna saw me first, let me see what Arjuna wants. Because of that, Duryodhana was really devastated. He knew that Arjuna would ask for the army rather than Krishna. But what did Arjuna do? This is the most amazing feeling. Krishna had so many warriors at his dispense, but Arjuna said, Krishna, I want you to be on my side. For most of us, it's a very tough situation. If you're a general of an army, what would you have? One person, or who is like a very dear friend because you don't know he's the supreme personality of Godhead, or would you have an army of several Akshoni army warriors, elephants, chariots? But then when Arjuna asked for Krishna, Duryodhana was overjoyed. He said, okay, no, I'll take the army. And he asked for, his leave straight away and went off in a happy smile. But unfortunately, all the members within the Krishna army, the Yadu dynasty, were also destroyed, and also through the curse later on by the Brahmanas. So it just shows you that even though Krishna can be on your side, you may have the biggest army in the world. There's nothing in the world that can save you from Krishna at all. So it's very important that you understand that important lesson. When we all go through different difficulties in our life, we sometimes ask for rich people or other people who are influential to help us. But sometimes we just pray to Krishna. Krishna always protects us in so many different wonderful ways, And that's why he's called Rishikesh. Rishikesh means the master of mystics. And it's also known as Parthasarathi. And Parthasarathi means one who draws the chariot. So Krishna was actually the servant of Arjuna, in this case in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He was actually the chariot driver for Arjuna. And Arjuna was telling him this way, that way, this way, that way. He was taking orders from Krishna all the time. And during the battlefield at the Kurukshetra, arrows were being fired in every direction, thousands and thousands of arrows. Not only was Arjuna being shot at, not only were the horses being shot at, but also they were arrows penetrating Krishna himself. It's so difficult to understand how could our beautiful Lord and Master have arrows penetrating. But Lord Krishna was also super fast. He could move the chariot by the thought of his mind. Because so many people from different directions were attacking Arjuna, even the great warriors like Bhishma Dev, sorry, and his own spiritual teacher, Acharya, they were attacking Arjuna from different directions. But Krishna, by the speed of his mind, speed of thought, from his thought, he could move the chariot so swiftly from one direction to another direction without any problem at all. Okay, there was one important thing that happened to the chariot after the Kurukshetra war. Now, does anybody know what happened to the chariot after the Kurukshetra war?
It blew off because
Yeah,
Krishna was protecting all the time. As soon as he got off, and then because he asked Arjuna to get off first, and because he was protecting, then because all the astra, all the weapon was coming in there, so that has a lot of energy to burn. But because Krishna was protecting, so nothing happened. As soon as Krishna got off, and the whole chariot blew up.
yeah, it's so amazing. That's such a beautiful story. I heard that from Shruti Dharma Prabhu many years ago. He explained that Arjuna was just ready to get off after the battlefield of Kurukshetra, but Krishna said, no, 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 sorry, he was asking Krishna to get off, but Krishna said, no, Arjuna, you get off first. Then Krishna got off. And then the chariot that was given by Agnidev was just burnt to ashes because of all the astras that was attacked by all the different personalities during the Great War. And all this time, Krishna was protecting Arjuna. Arjuna was thinking, oh, he's so powerful, he's so great warrior, but little did he realize that was Krishna all along that was protecting him. So sometimes we have those difficulties in our life. We think, how do we know Krishna's protecting us? How do we know? But we don't realize how much Krishna is protecting us. Sometimes a certain thing happens and we tend to have this, sort of disappointment. Oh, Krishna, why did you let this happen to me? Why did this person die? But you never know. Other situations could have happened even far worse. It's just like Prabhupada says in one of the purports in the Bhagavad Gita, sometimes when a devotee goes through difficulty, like if he cuts a little finger, actually we don't realize that karma is actually mitigated because the real karma could have been far greater, could have been like a life or death situation for some people. But if we get a tiny cut, it's because Krishna has mitigated whatever karma or sufferings that we had. That's why when we pray to Lord Krishna, although we do pray for protection to Lord Nrsimha, but we also pray to protect our devotion, because in our times of difficulties, like what we've all been facing over the last couple of years, we do go through a lot of difficulties. We always think, well, why is this happening? Why is this happening? Certain things are beyond our sort of intelligence that we cannot really answer at all. So we just have to really pray hard every day, ask for forgiveness, pray to the devotees for their association, constantly read the beautiful pastimes, the Leela of Krishna, his name, form, glories, and pastimes. And then also at the same time, it's so important to participate in the morning seva as well, the morning program, chanting your rounds, getting up early in the morning, performing arati at home. If you have a small deity at home, always consider being very punctual and very pucker in your service to their lordships, because they are practically the protector of your domain itself. Your home is like a temple itself, and whoever comes there, they should be treated like as if you're treating Krishna coming to your own home as well. So I'm just going to stop there. what it is, there's also three wonderful auspicious day, I suppose, special day today for three auspicious personalities. The first one is Sri Radharman. If I just share you another. So I'm sure many of you devotees have been fortunate to go to Sri Radharman. The temple, beautiful temple, was actually constructed by Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And it has a beautiful data of Sri Radhaman. I'll show you the picture. There's a beautiful picture of Murti of Sri Radhaman. And there's a replica of this particular Murti, identical replica, in one of the ashrams in, I believe, in at the Eco Village, which is run by His Holiness Radhanath Swami. I think it's called New Govardhan. And it's a beautiful replica of the Sri Radharaman temple. But those of you been to Radharaman temple in Vrindavan, one of the main temples established by the Goswamis, I'll just read a little bit about Sri Radharaman. And also, it also happens to be the appearance day of Madavender Puri. He happens to be the precept guru of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Although from a timeline they never saw each other, but everything that Madavendra Puri had established before Lord Chaitanya had appeared was all thanks to Madavendra Puri itself. And then also it's Sri Navara Sacharia's appearance day as well, and I'll explain a little about him later on. So I'll just quickly read this. So Sri Radharaman Mandir or Sri Radharaman Temple, I just wanted to check, you can all see this, okay, still?
Yes,
Yes, yes,
Yes.
it's okay.
Okay, yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you.
Yeah.
So Sri Radharaman Mandir or Sri Radharaman Temple, a beautiful, beautiful temple, uh, darshan there as well, and the beautiful prasad there. If you haven't been there already in Vrindavan, or haven't gone on pilgrimage to Vrindavan, I certainly recommend you to go there with Dinabandhu Prabhu. He'll tell you all the beautiful pastimes that you never heard of in Vrindavan, and show you different hideout places that devotees don't know about. But by now, most people would know because Dinabandhu has taken them all there. So it's an early modern period Hindu temple in Vrindavan, India, dedicated to Lord Krishna as Radha Raman. It was constructed at the request of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who is one of the six Goswamis, at around 1542 AD. This temple is among the 7 temples of Thakur of Vrindavan, including Sri Radha Vallabhaji, Sri Govinda Devji, and 4 others. The temple is exquisitely crafted and one of the most revered temples in Vrindavan, especially by the followers of Gaudiya Vaishnavam. It houses the original Shalagram deity of Krishna alongside Radharani. So the name Radha Raman, Raman means love, and Radha, of course, is Queen Radharani. Sri Radha Raman means the lover of Sri Radharani. Actually, it says Radha Raman means the lover, Ramana, of Srimati Radha. The temple was established over 500 years ago by Gopal Bhatta Goswami. At the age of 30, Gopal Bhatta Goswami came to Vrindavan. After Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's disappearance, Gopal Bhatta Goswami felt intense separation from the Lord. To relieve his devotee from the pangs of separation, the Lord instructed Gopal Bhatta in a dream, if you want my darshan, then make a trip to Nepal. So in Nepal, Gopal Bhatta bathed the famous Kali Gandaki River. So the Gandaki River is a beautiful river. Actually, you find most of the Shalagram Shila in the Gandaki River. There's one devotee, his name is Gandaki Das, because he loves taking care of Shalagram Shila, and he has so many Shalagram Shilas on his altar, and his devotee name, as spiritual masters call him Gandaki Das. Upon dipping his water pot in the river, he was surprised to see several Shalagram Shilas enter his pot. He dropped the Shilas back into the river, but the Shilas re-entered this pot when he refilled it. So amazing. So every time he tried to empty the pot, he kept on refilling with Shilas, almost like, the personalities of Shalagram Shila are non different from Krishna. They have a personality. Gopal Bhatta Goswami found 12 Shalagram Shilas. It is believed that once a wealthy man came to Vrindavan and offered Gopal Bhatta a variety of clothes and ornaments for his shalagrams in charity. However, Gopala Bhatta couldn't use these for his round-shaped shaligrams he advised the donor to give the deity decorations to someone else. It is believed that the donor refused to take them back, and Gopal Bhatta keep the closed ornaments with his Sheilas. On the Purnima, full moon day, so today would be a full Purnima. Let me just check on the calendar. At least it was, it doesn't say, yes, the full Purnima today,
Yes,
because
today
it's his
is full.
appearance day. In the evening, after offering Naivedya to a Shalagram, Sheila, Gopal put them to rest, covering them with the wicker basket. Late in the night, Gopala Bhatta took a little rest. In the early morning, he went to take bath in the Yamuna River. Returning from his bath, he uncovered the shaligrams in order to render puja, and saw amongst them a deity of Krishna playing the beautiful flute. There were now only 11 Shilas and a deity. So one of them, the Shila had manifested into the beautiful form of Sri Radharama. The Damodar Shila had manifested as the beautiful threefold bending form of Tribhangananda Krishna. So Tribhangananda means threefold. In this way, Radharaman emerged in a perfectly shaped deity form from a sacred Shalagram Shila. Devotees consider this image to be alive, and that he grants a chosen family the privilege of assisting him in his daily schedule. This way, the Lord has granted his wish, and the stone was turned into the Murti of Sri Krishna, sorry. As a narrative account of actualized Krishna Bhakti, Radharaman's appearance story highlights the divine human relationship of love as the ontologically central category of ultimate reality. So I don't know if you've been to Sri Radharaman. There's a wonderful devotee who stayed in the ashram, Gaurav. He's actually looking after the Sri Radharaman Mandir. He's part of the family descendants from a lineage of many hundreds of years who've been looking after Sri Radharaman. And they have a very, very strict code of conduct in doing any sort of offerings to the deity. So once he was explaining to me that if anybody outside the pujari would see any of the bhoga offerings, they would have to throw it away or give it away to the cows or dogs and have to prepare new food stuff itself. So it shows you the strict standard, and Srila Prabhupada actually mentioned the standard of worship be similar to the standard that they have at Sri Radharaman Temple. And if the standard is very high in ISKCON, so you can see the standard of devotional service at Sri Radharaman Temple. And if you go there, the devotees are so beautiful and so joyful. And they're always willing to give you prasadam whenever you ask them. And further down it says it's prepared by male members of the Goswami families in the temple kitchen. The fire in the kitchen lit in the early days of the temple still continues today. So that's another amazing feat that the fire that was used and the stove for making the prasadam is still the same fire that's been used for many centuries. So that's a little background on Sri Radharaman Prabhu, Sri Radharaman, the deity. Now I'll just talk a little bit about Madavender Puri as well. So if I show you a picture of Madavender Puri. So you may have seen this beautiful picture of Madavender Puri. This is a dream when a cowherd boy, it's actually a form of Krishna, comes to Madavender Puri, but it's probably better if I read it and I explain it to you. Okay, Madavendra Puri, before Lord Chaitanya appeared, he sent his eternal associates like Sri Advaita Acharya, Sri Jagannath Mishra, Sachimata, Madavendra Puri, Ishvara Puri to earth. Sri Madavendra Puri took initiation from Sri Lakshmipati Tirtha in the Madhava Acharya Sampradaya. He had many, but Sri Advaita Acharya and Sri Ishvara Puri were the chief disciples of Madavendra Puri. So Madavendra Puri was almost like the grand spiritual master of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because Ishvara Puri was the spiritual master of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in one way or another, all the Vaishnavas in Bengal and Kshetra Mandala, Jagannath Puri, were connected with Sri Madhavendra Puri. After Lord Chaitanya came, many of his disciples joined Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement. Madhavendra Puri's body was completely full of divine love. So were his followers. He displayed uncommon love for God, of God. See, in a dark blue rain cloud, he would fall down unconscious. Day and night, he was intoxicated from drinking the ambrosia of Krishna Prema. That's written from a biography by Vrindavan Das Thakur. is also written in the Chaitanya Mangala, the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. After making an extensive pilgrimage of Bharata Bhumi, India, he passed his life in Vrindavan and Orissa, which is where Jagannath Puri is. He began the restoration work of Vrindavan that Sri Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis continued later, wandering from grove to grove, remembering Radha Krishna's sweet Vrindavan pastimes. Madavender Puri would faint in ecstasy. In a dream, Sri Gopal ordered Madavendra Puri to uncover a buried Gopal deity and install him atop Govardhan Hill. Madavendra Puri celebrated Gopal's installation with an Anakut, grand festival offering, a mountain of foodstuffs to Krishna. This Anakut festival, also called Govardhan Puja, is one of the most important festivals in Vrindavan in India and around the world. The original Gopal deity, known as Srinathji, is now worshipped in Natadwara, Rajasthan. So here's the deity of Gopal Nathji. It's a beautiful deity. I haven't seen this deity myself personally, but here's something really important. So when we observe the Govardhan Puja, when we do the Anakut, thousands and thousands of offerings at every temple around the world, not just ISKCON temples, but any Vaishnava temple, you can see the whole ceremony all started off because of Madavendra Puri during the time when he did the Gopal installation, and he arranged for a huge grand feast for the offering to Lord Krishna himself. Madavendra Puri introduced the conception of Madhurya Bhava, conjugal love, in the Madhava Charya Sampradaya. Madavendra Puri sowed the seed of Prema Bhakti, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became the parent tree topping honey sweet fruits of prema upon everyone. He also revealed Viraha Bhava, the mood of love relished in separation from God. This branch of the Madhava sect distinguished it so by the ecstatic love of God. It is known as the Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya. In Jagannath Puri, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed an intense mood of Viraha Bhava. This increased unlimitedly when the Lord heard verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, Krishna Karanamrita, Gita Govinda Padyavali, and the love poems of Chandidas and Vidyapati. Mahaprabhu's Viraha begins with a single verse spoken by Madavendra Puri, his Param Guru, so his grand spiritual master, grand preceptor. Ayidina Dayatra Nata Ye Mathura Nata Gadavalokshya Yase Hridayam Tvada Loka Kataram Dayita Pramyati Kim Akaroti Aham. O compassionate Lord of the poor and humble, O Lord of Mathura, when shall I see you again? Without seeing you, my heart has become very much afflicted. O my beloved, I am overwhelmed. What shall I do now? We always feel like that, don't we? What do I do now? You are there, but you know, our heart is always full of pain, full of misery, full of the six enemies in life. And it's very difficult to conquer this anger, lust, greed. But we constantly prayed to the Vaishnavas, to our spiritual master, to Srila Prabhupada, to please allow us to be free from all these material influences. So it carries on a little bit more about Madhavendra Puri. So such a beautiful pastime of Madhavendra Puri. There is other beautiful pastimes if you do get a chance to read it. Now, the final personality I was going to talk to you about was Sri Navara Sacharia. So sometimes devotees get confused with Srivas Acharya as well, one of the 5 Panchatattvas. Sri Navara Sacharia actually, he never personally met Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was actually seeking Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but fortunately, during the timeline, it was not possible because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had finished his pastime. So Srinivasa Acharya is one of the most prominent personalities in the religious history of Bengal, perhaps the most important Vaishnava teacher. Srinivasa's parents were Chaitanya Das, Lakshmi Priya. They lived in a small village of Chakandi on the bank of the Ganges in the Bardwan district of Bengal. Srinivas was born in the 2nd or 3rd decade of the 16th century on the auspicious full moon day of the month of Vaishaka, April-May. He had broad chest, long elegant nose, beautiful lotus-like eyes, and arms extending down to his knees. Navara Sacharia married to Draupadi, who was a very great devotee and very knowledgeable. He had a daughter, Hemalata Thakurani. At Keturi, Bengal, he co-organized the first Gorpani festival. So can you imagine the first Gorpani festival was actually organized by Navara Sacharia, celebrating the anniversary of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance in this world with Narottam, Shamananda, and thousands of other Vaishnavas. In the early 17th century, Srinivas was personally trained by Srila Jiva Goswami at the Sri Radha Damodar temple. That's the beautiful temple where Srila Prabhupada had stayed some 12 years, I believe, before he came to the West. And those who've been there could actually sit there, and where Prabhupada was in one of the rooms where he used as a kitchen, through the window, he could see the tomb of Rupa Goswami. Srila Jiva Goswami passed the teachings of the Rupa Nuga Sampradaya onto him. It was Srila Jiva Goswami who gave Srinivas the title Acharya. Srinivas Acharya composed only 5 songs. He also wrote a commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam. He is the composer of the famous Goswami Ashtakam, 8 prayers of the 6th Goswami. So these prayers you would have heard Srila Prabhupada singing very often, and you may have heard it in the temple room playing Krishna, Kirtana, Ganana, Tanagaho. I can't remember the rest of the line unless I sing it. So I'm not a very good singer. But that's the famous song that Sri Vasacharya had written, Krishna Kirtana. It's Vande Rupa Sanatana, explaining about the 6 Goswamis, their personalities and so forth. So correct, it's 10 to 9 now, so I'll end there. So if there's any questions or comments, please do so. And just wanted to thank Pinky Mataji as well for reciting the English translation earlier on today.
Prabhu. Krishna, sorry. Okay, Jolly, please go on.
No, you carry on.
No, just a quick question. This Srinivas Acharya is not the same as where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to sing, Srinivas Angan? No.
So I mentioned earlier on, so Srinivas Acharya is actually one of the Panchtattvas. He's a Narada Muni.
Yeah.
But this Srinivas Acharya, he was another personality. In the timeline, he never actually met Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was seeking Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but unfortunately, the situation didn't allow him. He was there during the era of Narottam Das Thakur, and as you know, Narottam Das Thakur, he sings that song Jaya Nila Dino Pramadana, whereas Rupa Goswami, whereas Jiva Goswami, whereas all these great personalities. So they had actually missed all these great personalities. Although I forgot the person's name. He did actually meet Jiva Goswami, and Jiva Goswami trained him up to a certain level.
In Vrindavan? Vrindavan?
Yeah, Vrindavan or Orissa, one of those 2 places. More than likely it would be Vrindavan, because eventually...
It was Vrindavan.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
Thank you. So eventually they would have all stayed in Vrindavan, because that's where the 6 Goswamis were residing.
Thanks.
Jolie, did you have anything to comment?
Well, I was just wondering what comes out very clearly in most of these pastimes, how beautiful people are described, and the beauty is very prominent in everybody's speech in the pastime. And then in this world, we're not meant to see beauty and not non-beauty. We're meant to see each and individual as, as a pure soul. Yes. So I just wondered the connection and how it influences us.
Yeah, sure. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that as a Vaishnava, because he's humble, mild, and meek, he's tolerant like a tree, humble like a blade of grass. He's not looking for prestige, but he's ready to offer prestige or, or in reverence to others. Junada Pisa Nature, Taropi Seshnana, Manina, Manadina, Kitanya, Sadari, almost to the influence, a devotee doesn't see any difference between hell and heaven. But of course, most of us, we're not pure devotees. We're not even devotees. We just know beautiful pastimes of Krishna, and we just feel attracted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we do distinguish it to a certain degree because we're still conditioned to a certain level. But for a devotee, the idea is that he sees everybody as a living entity of the Supreme Lord, whether he sees a tiny little insignificant ant, or he sees, a great personality, or a great personality, or could be an opposite person, could be somebody very demoniac. But also at the same time, as a Vaishnava, he would try and avoid the association of those demoniac people, although he would respect that person to say he's part and parcel of Krishna. But ultimately, he realizes that there are favorable things in Krishna consciousness and unfavorable things. So one of the favorable things is Guru Sadhu Shastra, to always abide by the rules and regulations of Guru Sadhu Shastra and to avoid bad association. Just like when Bhishma Dev was there during the time of, Bhishma Dev was a pure devotee, he's one of the Mahajans, but at the time when the disrobing of Draupadi happened, he didn't say anything. But on his deathbed of arrows, he was given moral advice to Yudhishthira about how to behave like a Kshatriya, how to rule as a Kshatriya. And then Draupadi was laughing at him. And then Bhishma Dev understood what happened. Then Draupadi said, well, why didn't you say all these things at a time when I was being disrobed? You didn't do anything, but yet you've given advice to my husband, Yudhishthira. So the explanation Bhishma Dev gave that said, yes, please forgive me. I was actually eating the grains cooked by Duryodhana and his army itself. So the grain itself, because he was a simple person, that reaction was actually contained within the grain itself. So that's why on Ekadashi we prevent ourselves from grains. So just going back to your point, Jolie, Mataji, that sometimes we still have to distinguish a certain person from a good and a bad person, but we still see Krishna individually. The humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, that knowledge is the absolute truth. The Shastras that we read, the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, he sees with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, or a dog eater. So there's nothing worse than a dog eater. So we normally have the class system, the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, the Shudras, and also sometimes recognized as the untouchables. But as a Vaishnava, we're neither Shudra, we're neither Brahman, we're neither Kshatriya, we're just devotees of Krishna. But if somebody tells you to wash the toilet, you know that this is service of Krishna. But yet if somebody says, oh, look, there's some attack at the temple, we need you to guard the gates. And if anything happens, we want you to protect the temple and the devotees and the temple and the deities. And you have to do that. And sometimes, unfortunately, within ISKCON, that situation has happened. And you hear a lot of that in certain places around the world where there's a lot of corrupt government, communist government, who sort of tried to ban ISKCON, who tried to condemn ISKCON devotees, take them, throw them into prison, like the situation we had with the Sankirtan devotees in Russia, were taken and put into jail. They had to go through a court case. Luckily, through Krishna's arrangement, that they won the court case and they were all free. But the anxiety that the devotees go through is also psychological effect as well. So we just have to be very strong in our devotional life every day, Jolie. Mataji, yeah?
Yeah.
Any other comments? Any other questions? Just wanted to say thank you once again for joining in, and please forgive me for any mistakes I've made. So, Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyaivacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Prabhuji.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.